This is a short presentation about the Kurzweil PC88 piano. The Kurzweil is this one here, and it's turned on. And it's been completely disassembled and put back together again. So when I got this piano, it turned out it had a few broken key weights and keys were chipped, and I decided to replace them. And so I'm going to go through the steps that I did to do that with you. Okay, the first thing to do is to take off the top cover. And to do that, you need to take off 9 screws that hold it on in the back of the PC88. So to take off the side, you take off 1 screw in the back and 4 more screws on the bottom. So now that we got this side off, we'll have to take that side off as well. Then you can do this. Ta-da! Alright, I am standing here besides a partially assembled Kurzweil PC88, and I just wanted to go over the procedure in getting it disassembled on my model, and it may not be true with all of them. You're best to go ahead and take off all of the screws and remove the cover at the same time removing both side plates, and that'll require also some screws on the bottom. The reason I say that is because if you're not super careful, they have a capacitor on this board which when you go to reassemble is really easy to bump on either the side panel, as I did, or on the edge of the keys, ending up with knocking it off, and then you'll have to solder it back on. Okay, so that's it if you just want to quickly open up a PC88 and get to a few of the parts like the battery or 1 or 2 keys. Now if you want to get a little more involved, there's more to come. Okay, so next we took this all apart. We took all the screws out, lifted out the key bed, we lifted out the panels with all the electronics, and we took the case off and we started to remove the keys. So we're going to take the keys off, and we're going to put them in order as we take them off, just to make it easy to find them when we put them back into these trays. And after you remove the springs, and I've got them all removed, there's a little plastic tag which can be pushed in with a gently with a small screwdriver, and that holds the key in at the back. And then once it's released, then the key can be lifted up and pulled out. So there's that key. So once we get all of them off, we'll be able to see the key weights that are underneath the keys. As you can see, we have taken all the keys off, and now we can see the weights. But first off, I'm going to just do a little cleanup, because it actually still smells strongly of cigarette smoke, and there's toothpicks and broken pieces in there. So let's just do a little cleanup, and then we'll get to the key weights. It's as plain as I could get it to this point. So the next step is to take this set of weights off, and they actually all have to come out. They're on a rod that goes through the keyboard, and they're screwed in from the bottom. Okay, so this is one of the 2 rods containing key weights. One's longer, one's shorter. This is the shorter one. And I have sort of eased off this little group here. There's 4 groups per rod, so that I could pull this key weight off, and there you can see that's the broken one that needs to be replaced. It's pretty badly broken, but it might be gluable with super glue, but I think I'd rather to just buy a new one and put it in there, and then those will slide back on there. Okay, so the last major piece of this piano that I want to clean up in this refurb is the velocity switches, and I've unscrewed the screws that hold them in, and this one can come off, and so then you can see what they look like. Each one of these is the pair of switches for a single key, and there's one deep well and one not so deep well, and they just need to have the dust cleaned out of them basically. So I gave them a good vacuum, and did that instead of pulling them all out and washing them in water like the other video showed, which was a good video. It's just that I think these are going to be just fine. Okay, so we're ready to start putting her back together. I've basically replaced all the ones with broken tabs, and so they're all ready to go back in. I use a guide axle to help slide the key weights back onto the old axle because it's pretty tight once it gets all of them on there, and it tends to push the felt off. So two things that can help are, one, making sure there's no burrs on the axle, and also putting a tiny bit of Vaseline on the inside of each one to help it slide, and then you just gently push them into, maybe with a twisting motion sometimes, through a little hole in the felt, one by one. You can see that one's hitting the felt. I think it got through okay. And you can have a little tool to maybe realign things if they get a little off before you finalize it. And that's how it goes, at least the way I'm figuring it. This says how you can put the chassis back in by putting it on a metal spatula and sliding it in because it's kind of tight. Okay, and then when it goes in, it'll fit into the right holes, which are pretty snug and fairly self-evident which goes where. So that's about it. Now that the PC-8 is back together, I guess there's nothing left to do but to start playing piano. So let's get to it.